because I can double check everything that anybody says with ChatGPT.
I have patients who come in specifically because ChatGPT told them to. So now you have to mitigate expectations based upon what an AI tool says.
Hey everybody, welcome back to AI with Bri, the show where we're cutting through the noise and helping leaders learn, leverage, and lead with AI. I'm Brian Denstead, and you can think of me as your Chief AI Officer, helping you find your path. Each week, we're bringing someone who's navigating this shift from the inside, not just observing it, but actually living in it with their work on their teams. So today, I'm really excited to welcome Daniela Dennis to the show. Daniela brings something to this conversation that I think is genuinely rare. And I mean genuinely rare. She's an emergency medicine resident physician who's simultaneously building an AI startup, hosting a podcast, writing books, all while doing a residency. So let that sink in for a second, please, everybody. Welcome to the show, Daniela.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm happy to be here.
So, Daniela is the founder of PayScope MD, an AI platform that's helping physicians understand and optimize their employment contracts. She's hosting the Resident Founder podcast, exploring the intersection of medicine and entrepreneurship and career development. And she's the author of What Med School Didn't Teach Me About Money, a book helping medical students avoid the financial mistakes nobody warned them about. She's also a first generation college graduate and someone deeply committed to making sure that the next generation of underrepresented voices in medicine has the tools and information that they need to succeed. So, what I keep seeing is that the most exciting AI builders right now aren't coming from traditional tech. They're coming from people who have lived a problem so deeply that they just went and solved it. And I think, Daniela, you're exactly that kind of founder. So, again, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you again.
Really looking forward to this. So, emergency medicine residency and AI founder at the same time. I have so many questions about what's even possible, how that's possible. But I want to jump into this learn segment first. Tell us a little bit more about PayScope MD and what made you really decide to build it.
Absolutely. I think first, being first, as you mentioned, I'm in residency. So, for those of you who don't know, emergency medicine is a 3-year residency. So, I'm in my first year, which is actually crazy to think about. I'm actually towards the end of my first year of my emergency medicine residency. I'm over here at the University of Connecticut. And when I thought life couldn't be busy enough with residency, I decided to start a business on top of it. But, essentially, the idea of PayScope MD kind of came about once match day happens, where essentially you find out as a medical student where you'll be actually attending for residency. And I started being like, oh my God, like this is the great moment, right? Like I'm gonna be a resident. I'm finally gonna have my first paycheck in 4 years. And in residency, you don't make a lot of money. Like it's under six figures. If you really break down the actual pay is like maybe $16, $17 an hour. But I started being like, okay, like what does my future look like in 3 years in 2028 when I graduate, when I'm starting to make the big bucks? And I went through this like deep dive on YouTube videos, TikToks of learning about physician contracts and realized it's very not that easy. It's very convoluted. There's a lot of jargon. It's very hard to kind of navigate the process. And in my head, I'm like, okay, cool. You'll find an attorney, right? These are contracts. And then I realized the cost that a lot of these places were charging, like upwards to $2,000, $3,000. And as I just mentioned, as a resident, you're definitely not coming up with that money out of pocket. And so I
Mm-hmm.
talked to a lot of my friends who were going through that contract negotiation stage, and they were also frustrated of cost and, in addition, not understanding exactly what they're signing and how to go about it, right? Like you go through 10 plus years of schooling, but you never really learn about the business side of medicine. And so you're really ill prepared. And so I said to myself, well, we're in this really good revolution of AI. Like, why can't AI be this bridge to hopefully build a tool, not to replace legal advice, but hopefully give some type of guidance to individuals going through their employment contracts? And so that's why I built with PayScope MD, essentially using AI as a tool to where physicians can upload their contracts, get some AI generated key terms, red flags, potential areas to negotiate, and then real time salary benchmarking, because salary transparency is another hard thing within medicine to really find.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. So I think it's something that I hope people watching this podcast help get the word out about this. And if we stay focused on this learning piece for a moment, like you're learning about the AI pieces while you're actually like
Mhm.
building PayScope MD. So what is something you've discovered recently that genuinely surprised you or shifted how you're thinking about what AI can do?
No, it's a really great question. I think for me, the biggest thing that I'm really starting to learn a little bit, especially with AI, is just once again how much it gets better over time, the more data you give to it. So I think that's very interesting coming from the contract piece when it comes to physician contracts, because there is I mean, the amount of stuff that's within physician contracts is like astronomical, and it really
Hmm.
depends. So there's different employment opportunities that physicians can go through. They could do academics, working at an academic institution where you're primarily focusing on your clinical duties of working, but in addition teaching residents, and that has a different compensation structure and contract structure compared to if you want to do private practice. So being more on the entrepreneurship side and figuring out, okay, what's your pay structure there, and it's also different if you're in a community hospital, more of like a smaller area and hospital there. And so with that, there's a lot of different terminology that falls between these contracts that you may not see in one that might pop up in another. And so when you're generating
Hmm.
an AI tool, you're going to have to allow it to kind of get better at time of identifying a little bit of these nuances. But I think that's the exciting thing with AI, as I just alluded to, is the fact that once again, it just gets better with time, and you kind of create almost like a flywheel of data. And I think that's the other beauty of like AI. And then once again, time fast. I think that's the other
Hmm.
thing. Speed with AI just once again trumps a lot of things out there.
Yeah. And I double click on something that I think a lot of people are discovering with AI. Like AI is built on pretty much every piece of human knowledge that it can get its hands on.
Hmm.
But there is a lot of walled gardens out there.
Yeah.
And physician contracts are a perfect example of AI probably doesn't know that much about them yet because it hasn't seen them.
Right.
Like these are hidden things that are password protected, encrypted, and not out on the internet publicly, except for the couple of providers or physicians that have decided to put it out there on their blog or something, right?
Right.
So you have to almost train your AI as you're encountering some of these contracts. And you're using Claude, I believe,
That's correct. Yeah.
and I think some of the programs you've built from our previous conversation sounds like you've been building them in a very short amount of time. What did that experience teach you about how accessible AI building has become?
It taught me the barriers to entry to get into technology or tech-based spaces is very low nowadays, which is why I'm such a big proponent of AI. If you're going to use
Hmm.
it wisely, I think once again the whole generation of vibe coding is just so easy to get into, that I think now is going to become a skill that you're going to have to need to have. Like before it was just navigating how to work a computer and send some emails, but I'm just thinking about, like I said, the pace at which AI and so many different like tools that are out there, whether it's Claude, ChatGPT, Open Evidence, like Gemini, Perplexity, like it's only like, to me, I think it is going to become a skill that you're going to have to navigate in this world,
Hmm.
because everything revolves around AI. I mean, even in medicine, we're slowly seeing more AI integrations in our day-to-day clinical duties, whether we're using AI in terms of scripting. So for us, for when we're writing our notes, similar to how Whisper would, of like using dictation, we have that in the hospital. I use it on a daily basis to make my notes more efficient. I just talk to
Hmm.
the computer and it does things for me. There's AI in radiology and helping to read images more quickly and faster. And so once again, I just think that learning a little bit more about vibe coding, learning a little bit more about these AI tools and how they can be integrated in your day-to-day life, I think it's going to become more of an important skill to really have and master over time.
Absolutely. So, you get to interact with a ton of physicians and other medical students. You know, I'm curious, like I'm in the technology lens. I get to hang out with developers and stuff, and they're afraid their jobs are going to go away because vibe coding is going to come in. But I don't see that. I see it really like plowing in this new wave of entrepreneurship. I see them getting trained into the five or six subspecialties of what coding is going to do. What do you see in the physicians and medical student space? Are they too scared of it? Are they expecting too much from it?
I think it's still a little bit unknown, because I think for us in the medical side, there's a lot more questions, right? Because once again, we deal with patients. And so the first thing you think about is like security and like, where's this data going? I think also, too, like, and rightfully so, even I have as a physician, sometimes when I see a lot of AI companies within the healthcare space, is you have to have a little bit of skepticism in terms of who's building it, why they're building it, and how it actually is going to be built, right? Because I think, as you probably know, in the tech side, everybody is making something based on AI, and some of it's very helpful, and some of it doesn't necessarily need to be a business. It can be a cool little side project, but doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily need to be turned into a large scale business at all. And
that's
I
it.
think when it applies to medicine, I think that's the biggest thing of like, once again, who is actually building these technologies? I think something that's really, once again, unique, as you alluded to, for why I'm here is like, I'm a physician builder. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
in the med space, particularly in health tech, there's not a lot of physicians building, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think number one is that we as physicians are not exposed to entrepreneurship or even thought about that as a side career or even pairing with our career in medicine. And so by default, a lot of people who are non-physician founders build these companies and technologies to where, once again, on a clinician standpoint, actually don't make sense and doesn't have that same
Hmm.
nuance. And I think it's similar to how you're saying, like, you obviously understand AI, but you're also a tech builder yourself. And I think,
Hmm.
once again, I think that's the beauty of knowing both sides of things, because you can see what AI can provide. But I also think, regardless, there has to be some human oversight and people who have nuance. And so, for even
Yeah.
me stepping into the vibe coding space, I think people are always thinking about, like, well, the day and ages of software engineers are gone. I think of it opposite, because, once again, these AI tools have to come from software engineers to help get these
That's
things
right.
better, you know?
That's
And I
right.
think, and once again, too, like, even for me, from a vibe coding standpoint, an engineer is always going to supersede what I put out there, because you guys know the
Hmm.
nuances, you know the ins and out,
Yeah.
you knows the inputs that go into this, that I, who don't have a technical background, is not going to be able to pick up and see. And so, once again, I
Yeah.
think, in terms of your day-to-day job versus AI, once again, it's more of a pairing, not a replacement.
I agree. It's such a great point because I try to describe it to the teams that I'm leading as it's a twofold thing. As a developer, you're going to move towards working on the assembly line, not the actual cars. And then secondly, like people like you can come in and build an MVP, prove it has product market fit, prove you can get the first 10 grand in the door, and then come to somebody like me and say, hey, where are my security holes? How do I beef this up? How do I take it to the next level and scale this thing? And then we lock arms and go forward on that front. Yeah, it's amazing. So I know, and I was just at Health Innovation Day here in Charlotte yesterday, and I think the recurring theme that I heard was us tech people need to loop in people like you who are in the trenches every single day because you'll know that like that button shouldn't go there. That button needs to be better worded. I don't even know what that means. And so like there has to be this stronger connection between the people using the software and the people in the day-to-day of it along with the tech people that are helping build it because I might think this is the right workflow but you'll say no, not when there's blood splurting out over here and I need to go click that. Like no,
Hmm.
that's wrong,
Yep.
and I don't think like that. So I think it's going to further push our developers into working closely with people like you. We pivot over to this leverage section. I think anybody can say AI is going to change healthcare, right? But are you actually in the trenches building something real while also being a practicing physician? Like, what's something really concrete that has changed how you work with AI or as a founder building Payscope or a resident in the hospital where you can point to like a before and after that AI, I'm leveraging it?
No, that's a really great question. I mean, there is a lot of different examples that could be used in terms of, like, how AI has kind of been leveraged into the medicine space. I think, for one, like, for example, like, just how we track patients in the, for me, in the emergency department, for example, from my specialty standpoint, a lot of AI is integrated in terms of, like, where are people coming in and their time that they're checking in to the time that they're able to get a bed upstairs, and making that process more efficient in terms of finding the right placements for these individuals. As I alluded to even before, in terms of, like, radiology, now we can just even track how quick we're able to get turnaround times for different imaging results, in terms of, from the time that I submitted that x-ray to the time it's being read, could be now seconds to minutes, which is amazing
Hmm.
when it comes to patient care, and so many different outcomes that can come from that. There's a lot of AI integrations within the ICU, which is taking care of the most sick patients, to make sure that we are giving them the right medications at the right time. And so, like, for example, some of the things that I do like that hospitals are really integrating with AI are almost like data sets. So they can collect patient data based on their vital signs and trigger us to be like, hey, are you thinking about this diagnosis? If so, here's an order set of all the stuff that you're going to already click anyways, that is now put into a complete package. So all you have to do is click one button. I love that.
Hmm.
Makes it more efficient. So instead of me making 15 clicks, I could just make 1 click. And I think once again, those are the metrics and things that are going to make medicine much better with using AI. And I think that's the part that I hopefully over time between myself and other people as clinicians in this space can continue to leverage and also continue to develop in terms of what are the things, as you just mentioned to before, what are the barriers in terms of us providing care to patients that we can use AI to leverage and really build.
Yeah. And like I take it two steps further in my head of like the providers that we interact with are going to be able to like slow down a little bit, like
Yes.
look us in the eye and
Hmm.
feel that human connection with us. Like, I get you. I know this is tough, whatever you're going through right now. I'm going to see you through that and help you and make sure you've got the knowledge and all that stuff that the AI is going to leave you with as you walk out the door. But I also think AI has such a strong potential to say, look, my AI knows a boatload about Brian, but your AI at the hospital doesn't yet. So, like, how do our two AIs talk in some fashion that says, hey, Brian likes to run, he likes to bike, he likes to do, he eats more plants than your average person, kind of a thing. And you get that flavor in the EHR. So I'm just not a demographic variable of whatever XYZ. You can pull out that flavor of it. So I see so much potential with where it could go. But I like on this leverage piece, like I think of it as sort of three pieces as you as a founder building something. Like, how are you using AI to help you with the customer discovery and the product market fit, the people side of it? How are you using AI with like workflow and making yourself more efficient to get the job done faster? And then I'm curious how you're layering in AI in the actual product with Payscope. Can you walk us
Yeah.
through those three aspects?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it comes to like the patient side in terms of like leveraging AI on my day-to-day workflow, I think it's like honestly the outcomes is like what you just mentioned. It's like slowing down, right? We get reports as physicians in terms of our feedback working with patients. So when patients see us in the emergency department, and every hospital is very different, but for the places I work at, essentially after a patient leaves, they get a survey and they tell you how well you did in terms of their interactions with you. And a lot of it comes down to, as you just mentioned, the outcomes of like this doctor listened to me. And like I said, these things sound like very basic, things that should be the standard. But as you alluded to, unfortunately, in the physician world, it's just not. Like you're just trying to cram in a
Yeah.
lot of patients to see because the demand is so high. And so when you see people say like this person was very kind, they explained everything, they sat down, right? And
Hmm.
a lot of it
Yeah.
comes from the fact that like once again, like you can now use AI when with patient interactions with their consent, of course, to be like, hey, when I introduce myself, I'm like, hey, Dr. Dennis, do you mind if I just hit record on my phone to record our conversation so that it automatically
Hmm.
gets uploaded into your electronic medical record and makes my I don't have to type at the same time while you're talking. So I
Yeah.
think for me, that's something cool. And then patients love to hear about it. They're like, oh, tell me a little bit more about that. And like, it's a nice little conversation back and forth. And then you start thinking about what are other things that I can really leverage with patients that will make them have more of a better experience when working with physicians in that standpoint. I think when it goes to Payscope, it's kind of nice because once again, my day-to-day interaction is working with residents and I'm working with other attending physicians that are already going through the things that I'm building for. And so I have direct access to the people that I want to target. And so for them, I really just have direct conversations with them. And then it's kind of nice, for example, with having a lot of senior residents who are pretty much getting ready to graduate in the next couple months to where they have a boatload of contracts that they went through this entire
Hmm.
cycle to where I'm like, hey, can we de-identify this and extract obviously your personal data, but then use that to boost up, as I mentioned before too, with AI getting better with time with the more data you give it, loop that back into like a nice little loop cycle. And then using that to get stronger. And then once again, figuring out from their perspective, what did you find frustrating within your contract phase, right? And then also learning
Hmm.
about the different nuances. Are you going to academics? Are you going to private practice? What are other things that you wish that you had a tool to kind of help you navigate that process? And so for me, it's just once again that market research, the basics when starting a business of just once again getting to understand your customers and figuring out where's the pain and where can we bridge that solution.
Hmm. Absolutely. I love that. And it's to me it's striking me because like everything you just said describes that you're like living proof that the barrier to building with AI has completely collapsed. Like I don't know. I just love it. So
Yeah.
you're you're in residency and shipping products at the same time. So kudos to you. I'm gonna I know I went through the stress of working and going to college at the same time, but I can't imagine some of the stories you might have. So, um, we pivot into this last segment of the show, the leadership portion of it. And this is honestly one of the ones I'm probably the most curious about with you, Daniela, because your whole journey is about leading from a place where you weren't really like given a true map, right? Like first generation college grad, first generation physician entrepreneur, building Payscope, writing the book that some you wish someone had like handed you. And this is what I'm seeing across the board right now. AI is shifting this power dynamic everywhere, including medicine. Physicians who understand that are going to have an enormous advantage. The ones that don't are going to feel it. So, and leaders in healthcare are trying to figure out how to bring their teams and their communities along on this AI journey. So, how do you think about leadership and all what I just said in your role, helping that next generation of physicians not just survive, but shift into actually leading with AI?
That's an amazing question. And I think that's honestly the next part of my journey of like trying to navigate. As you mentioned, like you said it perfectly. Like I've kind of navigated this entire journey to where I've been without having a clear map. But one way or another, you always figure it out. And I think for me, I've always been a big proponent of lifting as I climb, like the quote that I love from Maya Angelou, who says that. And if there's anything that I learned that I'd love to just bring to the next generation, and I said before too, like vibe coding is going to be like the skill that you're going to have to learn, or just knowing what AI tools can provide, or just going to be the skill that you have to learn. And I think once again, I want to translate that to hopefully teaching other people about it. And that's why I love being on podcasts like this to talk a little bit more about those situations. Because once again, I think it is going to be a skill as a physician, whether you are a proponent for AI or not. You're going to have to learn this because it's already here and it's
Mm-hmm.
only going to continue to evolve. And I think on the leadership perspective, I think once again, we as physicians are going to have to be very responsible and learning about this and potentially leading a lot of the innovation that comes out there. Open evidence is now like one of the biggest rising, databases out there within this phase of AI. And once again, that's going to continuously need physician oversight. It's going to continuously need us to kind of step in there and help that. And also on the patient side of things is another reason why I think it's important for physicians to kind of step into this leadership role is that we still have to mitigate and guide patients in terms of the information they're receiving. So what's also interesting, as as much as I'm all for AI, there are some drawbacks, right? It's not going to be the most accurate in all times. And so something I
Mm-hmm.
also struggle with right now is I have patients who come in specifically because ChatGPT told them to. And then I have to mitigate, and I've never
Yeah.
thought this would
Mhm.
happen, but I have people who are like, I hurt my back and ChatGPT said I might have cancer and I need an MRI. And so now you have to mitigate expectations based upon what an
Yeah.
AI tool says and you and
Hmm.
your credibility. And you would think that like, oh, I'll just listen to the doc. A lot of them are very fixated on what these
Yeah.
tools produce. And I think
Yeah.
that's another reason why I'm saying we need to be very mindful and understand how these tools work so that we can educate patients a lot more in terms of where the information is coming from. And as
Hmm.
mentioned before, too, about having some level of skepticism, right? Like, where is the data coming from in terms of how you're teaching these AI tools and models, right? Who's being involved in these conversations? Is it physicians? Is it not? Because once again, that changes a lot in terms of how much can we trust these models and tools that are going to be really
Hmm.
impacting for patient standpoint. And so I think leadership in just this space is going to be super important to and only evolve over time.
So well said. I mean, because like the thing that sparked at my conversation at the conference yesterday, I moderated this panel on AI, and the thing that came up was I have been chatting with my ChatGPT or Claude for the past year or two now. I trust that it knows all about me in every nuance, and I trust what it's going to tell me about my health or situation. And I think it's probably a worldwide problem, but I see it as a more prevalent problem in America that we don't trust certain levels of authority.
Yeah.
We don't trust our lawmakers. We don't trust our police. We don't trust our doctors to a certain degree. We don't trust our school teachers. Like we have got to go back to this element of trust and figure out how we can congeal this level of trust because like I know and I've been biased on that front because I'm in the plant-based vegan side of things and my doctors told me to go eat a piece of meat. Your iron is borderline.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm like, no, I just probably need to eat more spinach or something, but I don't need to eat a piece of meat.
Hmm.
So it's very it's a really challenging problem for us as leaders to try and help really get to the core of it of how do we instill more trust in our credentials that we bring to the table now because I can double check everything that anybody says with ChatGPT. So Really, any quick reaction to that? Otherwise, I have one or two more big questions to ask.
No, absolutely. No, I think as my quick reaction, like I totally agree, especially like that last piece of like once again the credibility and authority standpoint. I think this is where once again like physicians can really like step up, and I think once again you're starting to see a new generation of physicians who are very active on social media to where this is becoming their
Hmm.
side thing, right? Like you're starting to see more
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
physicians, like whether it's the Doctor Mikes out there who have like million plus subscribers, who spend their time debunking a lot of myths and so forth, whether based on
Hmm.
AI or not. And I think that helps build some
Yeah,
trust and give you a little bit more some public oversight.
that's right. Absolutely. I noticed in my research with you, you're doing 30 conversations in 30 days with physician entrepreneurs. What are you learning from that about how physicians are thinking about AI right now?
No, great thing. Yeah. So I kind of came up with that challenge to really challenge me in my networking skills. As you know, I alluded to, like, once again, to build a business like Payscope or just build any business, you got to talk to your customers and talk to people. And once again, even though I am a resident, I haven't gone through the contract stage just yet. And so I have to lean on to the other people who've been through this multiple times or have more experience than me. And so I've been really leaning on into people who are physician entrepreneurs to kind of get their perspective in starting businesses and so forth. And I think it's been amazing conversations thus far in terms of just meeting amazing builders. I think in terms of great takeaways I've just kind of learned from them is just always find ways to evolve and get better with your product. That I think once again is like the bare minimum things, but I think you kind of sometimes forget about that, especially when you're kind of getting ready to scale and think about on the long term side of things. You can't forget about your actual end user, and you also can't forget about once again, even though mentally you think something might make sense as a feature, but if the customer is like, listen, this is dumb and I don't want this, then you have to listen to what they have to say. And I think that's so true, like even on the health tech space, when you're building as a physician for other potential physicians or even patients, you have to think about the end user at the end of the day. And I think those are some of the things I'm kind of taking away for some of those conversations thus far.
Hmm. And I want to hone in on like something we were talking about earlier because to me, it's clear that you and I are the type of people that when we see a problem, we lean in, right? Like we're going to go watch the videos, we're going to learn how to overcome that problem, that challenge, and face it head on, and almost lead through it. What would you say to the medical students or the residents who feels like entrepreneurship, problem solving, AI are worlds away from them? What do you say to that person?
I say get involved in entrepreneurship. You know, it's so funny as a resident. I feel like I joke with myself a lot of times, but hindsight being 2020, I'm like, I wish I would have started a business in med school, right? Like, granted, I don't think it would be to the,
Right.
I don't think it would be to the extreme of building Payscope, right? You don't have that knowledge or you
Yeah.
don't think about that. But like, even if
Hmm.
like I came up with like a tutoring company or something, because like as med students, you're very scrappy, right? You
Yeah.
are. Especially towards the end of your med school journey, like you are broke and you do have some time on your hands. And I just wonder to myself, like, this is the perfect time for a lot of people to kind of get into entrepreneurship. Now, I will say, I think there is a new wave of med students coming in. So, a lot of med students at my institution that I've been connecting with have been actual medical students who've worked on the VC side and actually have built companies themselves and are now
Mm.
becoming medical students, which I think is absolutely amazing and fun to really think about. And I always question them of like, what's the direction that they're going to take once they finish medical school? Because, like I said, you don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to go into residency. A lot of them can go to VC firms and, become
Hmm.
consultants and so forth. But I think it's also interesting in general when I see a lot of medical students now who've already come from an entrepreneurial background. But even if you did not, I think once again, you can use AI as a leverage tool to bridge that gap to where, once again, you don't necessarily need to come from that coding background or software engineering background just to get started. And so I would
That's
say to
right.
them and challenge people that, like, once again, if you have an idea and it doesn't even have to be health related, whether you have a beauty brand idea and whatever the case may be, you could just get started, right? And use that.
Hmm.
Like nowadays, you hear the cold term of med influencers because you have physicians who are stepping into the social media side, content
That's right.
creation, and it's lovely. And I love that. And so once again, I just want to say to those medical students, residents, even just attending physicians, no matter what, you can always get started. And once again, you have the credibility within your knowledge, within your skill set, right? Like to become a doctor, you went through a lot of years of training, and so once again, it's not a lack of competency; it's just learning a little bit about the new space that you're going to be entering.
Well said. Well said. I mean, there's such strong framing there that AI isn't a tool just for the big health systems or well-funded startups. Like it's available right now. Everybody who's listening to the resident physician who sees a problem and just wants to solve it and dig in. So I hope everybody out there that's listening and watching this podcast hears that loud and clear. So Thank you so much for being here, Daniela. How do people watching this or listening to it get in touch? And what else should we put in the show notes for you?
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for this conversation, Brian. I loved it. I'm looking forward to see when it get finally released. People can find me on my LinkedIn, Daniela Dennis. I'm active on social media. You can put my Instagram, Daniela underscore double D. And then you can find us for Payscope, MD at www.getpayscope.com. Working on continuing to evolve it over time. So excited for that. And then social media platforms for Payscope is at Get Payscope, MD as well.
I love it. Perfect. We're going to make sure all of Daniela's links, including Payscope MD and her podcast, are in the show notes down below. So you can click straight through. To everybody out there, if this episode gave you a new way to think about what's possible when you combine clinical expertise with AI, please pass this episode along. Share it with a medical student and a resident or a physician in your network who's just starting to think about entrepreneurship. Please follow the podcast, leave us a review, and check out all the ways to connect with Daniela in the show notes again down below. Again, I'm Brian Denstead. You've been listening to the AI with Bri podcast. And remember, the future doesn't wait. Learn, leverage, and lead. And we'll see you next week. This episode of AI with Bri was hosted and produced by me, Brian Denstead. Produced with help from Nancy Velasquez and Kelly Lopez. Video by Leo Moralina. Sound AI generated. Find us on all platforms at AI with Bri and visit ai.bri.net for more. Learn, leverage, lead.